Hello, this is Dyce Kimura. I'm a guitar teacher giving guitar lessons in Miami and also on Skype. Okay, I'm doing this video blog today just to talk about some commonly asked questions that I get asked every day on the phone from prospective students that want to come in and get guitar lessons. Okay, so I thought I'd just do a video to just address some common questions in case any of these pertain to you. Okay, so I typed up a few of these common questions. Let me read off one of them. Here's the first one. Do I have to have my own guitar? To take lessons, I guess you don't have to have your own guitar. You're welcome to borrow one of mine. But I think it should be obvious to you that if you're going to actually play the guitar in practice, you're going to want to buy your own guitar or borrow a guitar or have someone give you a guitar if you intend to get good at it, okay? Because obviously you don't want to just play the guitar at your teacher's studio. You want to be able to play the guitar at your home, in front of your friends, with your band, with your loved ones, in your quiet time. So do I have to have my own guitar? No, you don't have to have your own guitar. Do I suggest you have a guitar to play at home? Yes, I do, because then you can practice it and you can develop your own ideas. And then when you work with your teacher, you just check in with your teacher as opposed to every time you interact with your teacher, it's like you haven't touched your guitar since your last lesson. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Okay, next question. Which is better, acoustic or electric? Okay. What I mean is, which is better, acoustic guitar or electric guitar? Often, too, people will say, which is better, the normal guitar or the electric guitar? And usually people, when they say the normal guitar, they mean the acoustic guitar. I just want to point out that the electric guitar is not an abnormal guitar, okay? So it's not like there's normal and abnormal, like acoustic and electric. Also, some people say that the acoustic guitar is the wooden guitar. I also want to point out that both the electric and acoustic are all made of wood, okay? So they're both wooden guitars, they're both normal. So getting down to this question, which is better, the acoustic or electric guitar? Neither is better, they're both amazing. Which is better for a beginner? I would say for a beginner, for most beginners, the easier one to start on is the electric guitar, okay? And by the way, that's counterculture. A lot of people think that the acoustic is better or easier to start on. I'm gonna disagree with that conventional theme that a lot of non-guitar players and even parents have. And the reason why is simply because it's easier. The electric guitar has a thinner neck. The neck is thinner. It's easier to wrap your hand around. The strings are lighter, and it's easier to play. A lot of people just have no idea how hard it is to actually play the guitar in terms of pushing the chords with their left hand. They don't realize it until they're all up in their first lesson. They're like, oh my goodness, this thing is really challenging. And anything and everything that you can do to make it easier on yourself, I think you should do. I mean, let's face it, learning how to play music is hard enough, but to have the physical challenge of having a cumbersome guitar that is not making the sounds quickly and easily and pleasantly, that in itself is a huge challenge as well. So I've been able to witness a lot of people benefit tremendously by just starting on electric. You know, it's a slimmer neck. I know I'm holding an acoustic right now, ironically, but I'm talking about electric. It's a slimmer neck and it's easier. And I'll give you a good analogy. For any of you baby boomers out there, if you've ever typed on a typewriter, have you ever typed on an old-fashioned typewriter? Like like not the electronic ones, but the actual old-fashioned, and you have to actually dig the key and push the key in to make the key punch the paper, and the ink, stamps the paper, and that's how you type. It's like very loud and forceful and cumbersome. That's like playing an acoustic guitar. And then the cool thing is when you just plug it in, when you add electricity, you can type so much easier. Matter of fact, I'm typing with my Mac, and then I have a Bluetooth Apple keyboard, and my fingers just fly on the keys. It's just amazing, and it even autocorrects. It's great. imagine that analogy is 100% true, but with guitar. So there is kind of an old conventional thinking, even a backwards thinking, that if you plug it in, it's harder. But that's not true. You can plug in a vacuum cleaner, you can plug in a guitar, and you can plug in a coffee maker. There's all kinds of appliances nowadays that if you plug it in, it's so much easier. So take advantage of that. The electric is a lot easier. By the way, I do want to take this opportunity to tell you, if you're not sure about getting electric or an acoustic, you can come see me and you can try both, and just try it before you go buy it. And or you can go buy it at your local store and or on Amazon, and most of these places have a 30-day money back guarantee. So you can get the guitar, even get it on a credit card, so you're actually not really paying anything, and just try it. And if you don't like it, return it, for a full refund. Or with Amazon, you might have to pay for shipping. But other than that, you can try to make an informed decision. If you like it, you can keep it. If you don't like it, switch to the other one. So that's a no-risk way of trying electric guitar. You're going to obviously have to get an amp, and feel free to look on my YouTube channel. I have on my YouTube channel other videos for a Fender Squier review that I recommend, also for a good acoustic that I recommend called the Epiphone PR150, and also the PV Viper amp, which is a great electric guitar amp. So I've done very in-depth reviews of these beginner guitar appliances and equipment that you're going to find very beneficial. So check it out. Okay. So again, which is better for a beginner, acoustic or electric? I suggest the electric guitar. And again, there's no abnormal guitar. All guitars are normal, and all guitars are wooden, with few exceptions. There are a few exceptions when you have guitars made of steel or brass or plastic, but most guitars are wooden. Also for kids, if you're a child and your hand is small, or if as a woman, if your hand is smaller than a full-grown man, you're really going to appreciate the electric guitar, okay? Because again, it takes less strength to play, and the bigger your hand, the more torque you have in the ability to actually leverage and push on the strings. So it's going to be harder for a child or someone with smaller hands like a woman to play a full-sized acoustic guitar. What are the advantages of acoustic guitar? Well, there's portability and there's simplicity, okay? However, because you don't have the advantage of electricity working in your favor, you have to do all the work, just like the old typewriter. The old typewriter is portable, but it's cumbersome, okay? I just want to say this: you don't have to commit to one or the other. Matter of fact, I don't. Take a look behind me. I have a lot of both styles, okay? I chose not to commit to either electric or acoustic. I even have a flamenco style over here. I'm holding an acoustic dreadnought. I've got a bass. I play a Taylor 814. There's a bunch of electrics. So even if I move the camera, you can even see in the corner I have a 3/4 size, that red guitar. That's for my son, and that's good for kids. So there's all these different options. If you are a committed guitar player, eventually you should have both an acoustic and electric, and even a nylon string, okay? It's good to have a couple. But if you're just starting out and you just want to get one, I suggest you get the electric, unless you're just absolutely not into electric guitar music. See, that's another major question I ask a potential student. What kind of music do you like? So if you tell me that you like, rock or pop, then you should probably be playing an electric guitar, because within a few months you're going to be wanting to play those songs as soon as you get good enough, right? But if you get an acoustic, or even worse, if you get a nylon string guitar, like what's behind me right there, that's called a classical guitar, but you don't play classical, but you get it because the salesman said that the strings are really easy to push. The salesman's happy, he made the sale. But now you're stuck for life with this guitar that it was designed to play Mozart and Bach and Beethoven, or flamenco or Brazilian jazz, but not Green Day or Metallica or Jimi Hendrix or Stevie Ray Vaughan, whatever you're into, or Taylor Swift. It's not conducive to what you're currently doing. So what I suggest you do, if you're really torn, is take a look at your top 5 favorite guitar players and see what kind of guitar they dominantly play. Is it acoustic or electric? Okay. That's a major question. So if you're mostly listening to acoustic players like Jack Johnson, um, Dave Matthews, or oldies like Simon and Garfunkel, James Taylor, um, or in the pop culture like Taylor Swift, let's say, those are all acoustic. You can do acoustic and do great with that stuff. You can also do all that stuff with an electric, by the way. Um, and or if you're listening, to mostly 70s rock, 60s rock, 90s rock, any kind of rock, 2016 rock, blues, funk, reggae, R&B, punk, jazz, even. A lot of the stuff is played on electric, so that should help you make up your mind. Okay, be realistic. Try to bet on the long term. And try to imagine yourself playing guitar if you're really going to play to be a player for the rest of your life or for several years until you exhaust, this pursuit. You're going to want a guitar that is going to facilitate and allow for you to play the kind of music that you're into, if that makes sense. Okay, so don't get a guitar just because the salesman says to get it and there's no other reason other than that. Do your due diligence, figure it out. Feel free to send me an email or give me a call. We can talk about it a little more. Okay, next question. I get asked this a lot on the phone from prospective students. Quote, how long till I get good at guitar? Okay. That is such a hard question for me to answer. How long till I get good at guitar is the question. And first of all, I don't know what your definition of good is. I mean, your definition of good and my definition of good may be completely different. I mean, I've been playing 8 hours a day for 31 years, and it took me a while to get good. I don't know how you define good. I mean, the way I'm like a perfectionist, so I define good to be like amazing, But you could be good with just playing Sweet Home Alabama at the barbecue. So it depends how you define good. It's hard for me to answer that question for you. Okay, but at the same time, imagine imagine if let's say you work at a gym and there's a person that's out of shape that calls the gym, just calls them up and says, hey, how long till I get fit? How many workouts does it take till I get fit? Or how many personal training sessions till I'm good, or till I'm, attractive, and this is over the phone, mind you. There's just no way to tell, like, how much do you weigh, what's your body fat ratio, what's your sleeping patterns and eating patterns, what's your propensity, your natural propensity of your disposition of how your body is, how often are you going to work out, how diligent are you going to be, what's your water intake, what's your diet like, what's your eating habits. It's really hard to tell all this over the phone and sell you a gym membership. So in the same way, people call me up on the phone, they say, how long until I get good? I'm like, I don't know, I haven't even met you. I mean, that's a good question. It's a valid question. I understand a lot of people want to know that, but after a month of lessons, I can answer that question for you a lot better, because I'll understand what your learning curve is, how fast you learn, how fast you digest material, how much time you want to put into your practicing, how many lessons a month you want to take to actually help you move along with decisive coaching, and how much work you're ready to put into it on a daily basis. And if I know all that stuff, then I can say, okay, at the current trajectory you've now established, I can guesstimate that it'll take you 2 months to be able to play that song. You know what I'm saying, or whatever. But it's very hard or impossible to give you that over the phone. And a lot of people ask me that. It's often like their first question. But to be fair to you, I want you to know that that's just impossible. And if someone were to promise you something like that, like, be amazing in 30 days or whatever, without ever meeting you or knowing how fast you learn or what your predisposition is in terms of, your learning abilities, your musical abilities, your available free time, even your age, all these things come into play. Then they're probably just trying to sell you something real quick and not actually take the time to walk you through the process of getting good, which is exactly what I do, by the way. So moving on. If you have any questions or comments about this, feel free to comment. I do read all the comments and respond to them. Or you can send me an email, dice@dicekimura.com. Next question. How many lessons should I take a week or per month? Okay. Um, Let me answer this with a blanket question, with a blanket answer. I would say for most people, one lesson, 1 hour, once a week is great. If you can give me 1 hour a week of coming in for your lesson, and I'll give you enough homework and stimulation for the other 6 days of the week, and that's a good schedule to get on. I do suggest you have consistent lessons, weekly lessons, on a consistent day of the week at a consistent time. Of course, not everyone can do that. I used to have consistent lessons, when I was a kid, growing up, because my life was very structured as a child. When I became an adult, when I became a professional, I can understand how hard it is for people to do it. Some of my clients are emergency room doctors. I got some people that are in and out of town constantly, nurses, lawyers, people that just have sometimes they have very incredibly demanding schedules, and yet they want to play guitar. So I'm very flexible. I just say come and go as you please. I don't put any restrictions on you in terms of how many lessons to take a month. I don't penalize you if you don't take a certain amount of lessons per month or per week. But if you're curious on my input, I would suggest the best plan of action, if you can, is to commit to one lesson a week for 1 hour. Even if you didn't practice that much that week, it's good to just commit, because you start to get ingrained and yoked into this rhythm of accountability. You're meeting with your teacher, you're meeting with your mentor, you're meeting with your coach, you're checking and reassessing where you're at and where your goals are, because it's really easy to take on something as complex as learning music or playing guitar, and it feels like you're just kind of swimming out in the ocean without a lifeboat or a paddle, and it can be huge, because there's so. And then if you look nowadays, if you go on Google, you can Google, there's so many things coming at you, at the speed of light on the internet, that is so confusing. I'll get into more of that later in the talk, but I do encounter a lot of people that have some serious whiplash from Googling stuff, and they want me to explain it all to them, and I'm going to attempt to take a crack at that as well. So to answer your question, I think you should do one lesson once a week. However, a better answer is to try to learn to just commit to playing guitar, whether it's with a teacher or without a teacher, whether you can play every day or you can't play every day, whether you can play every week or you can't play every week. You just commit to it, and you try to build your life into it to do the things you're passionate about. It's great if you're a perfectionist, because you want to work hard and get it perfect. However, perfectionists are also at the greatest disposition to actually burn out and quit, because it has to be at a certain pace, it has to be a certain way, or nothing at all, and that's not a good habit to have. I give you an example. I'm like that with the gym. I just have a gym membership, and I just go when I can. I used to be very structured, and it has to be this, and today we're doing this body part, and tomorrow we're doing that. I just can't do that anymore. I'm so busy with all of my responsibilities and work that I just go when I can, and I'm content with that. And at the same time, I'm not trying to be, competing in the next triathlon or anything. I'm just trying to stay fit. And so in the same way, if you just want to start building guitar in your life, and you're not trying to be a professional, you just want to have something enjoyable to do, then just try to do it when you can. Book a lesson when you can take a lesson, and the weeks you can't, don't do it, and practice when you can. And the days or weeks that you can't, it's okay if you don't. Ideally, if you can, as an absolute beginner, if you can practice 2 or 3 times a week, you're probably doing pretty good. I know that sounds terrible, because you should be practicing every single day, okay? At least that's what they told me when I was a kid. But I'm also realistic as a guitar teacher. I've taught thousands of people over the years, and I've just realized that it takes, honestly, 2 months. There's a learning curve of 2 months to actually build something into your life. Keep in mind that, let's say somebody gives you a guitar. Let's say your parents give you a guitar, or your spouse or your boyfriend or your girlfriend gives you a guitar. Let's say, says, here, I'm going to give you this gift of music. I'm going to give you a guitar. They're not giving you the gift of music. They're giving you a guitar. That's like me giving you a gym membership, saying I'm going to give you the gift of fitness. You didn't give me the gift of fitness. You gave me a gym membership. Now I have to go to the gym every day, okay? I have to get in my gym clothes and drive to the gym and fight traffic and park and check in and then warm up and then work out and then cool down and stretch and leave and get back in my car and then shower and change and drink a protein drink or something and get ready for my life. I mean, there's so much more on a daily grind than just giving me a gym membership. In the same way, just because you buy a guitar or somebody gives you a guitar, they're not giving you guitar playing, they're not giving you music. You have to get out and earn it on your own. And this is something that, through this talk, it's something that I'm helping maybe permeate and actualize in your mind. But you're still going to take a few months of actually walking this out to even see what this looks like for you. If you want to start to learn to play guitar, it's going to take a few months of just trying every day to make time for it. And sometimes succeeding, sometimes not succeeding, but just continually trying without getting down on yourself or being too much of a perfectionist or being an all or nothing mentality to actually build it in your life. What you're trying to do is build it into your life, okay? The better you get at guitar, and I'm going to fast forward now for several years here, so stay with me for a second. But the better you get at guitar, the more you have activities populating in your calendar that have to do with guitar. For instance, as a beginner, you may have an appointment with your guitar teacher once a week, and that's the only activity you have populated your calendar. As you progress, maybe you have some concerts that you're going to every month or whatever, or every other month you're just checking out some artists that you're into, and that's also invigorating your passion for playing the guitar. As you get better, you may have a friend that you can check in with once a week or once a month and play some tunes together, and then you guys go home and agree to work on those songs. So that's another event populating your calendar. Maybe one day, this is fast forward for a few years, but maybe one day you join a band or the band joins you, and you start having a consistent rehearsal dates on your calendar, even a date that you're going to go play at the shindig and perform at the open mic or the barbecue or whatever. So now there's all these dates that have to do with music that are populating your calendar. Obviously, the more dates you have populating your calendar, the more mindful you're going to be of music, and the more and more it becomes built into your life. So the thing with music is the hard thing that people find is getting it built in. By the way, the easiest thing is to buy the guitar. Now, some of you may, are you kidding? Do you know how much a guitar costs? Yes, I do. I have a bunch of them. Okay, you can get a beginner level acoustic for $150. You can get a beginner level electric for about $130. Okay, at least for what I suggest. There are cheaper ones, but that's the minimum that I suggest. But that's the easy part. Scraping up $100, $200 for a guitar is easy compared to the daily grind of building it in your life. That's the real challenge. Okay. Because it's uncharted territory. You've never done it before. You have no idea what it's going to look like. It's wild and unrehearsed, and it's fun though. And remember, this is what you wanted. You wanted to learn how to express yourself musically or be part of it. So you have to allow for that to build in. So, how many lessons a week do I take a month? Really, just do what you can. Okay. Even if you could have good days and bad days. You could have good weeks and bad weeks. You could have good months and bad months. Listen, I've been playing 31 years. I've had bad years, okay? I've had great years too, but I just commit to playing. I don't really change course just because I'm up or down. I keep doing it, okay? Next question. How many lessons does it take to get good? That's kind of similar to the second question, which is how long till I get good, but this time it's a little more specific. How many lessons does it take to get good? This is somebody asking me that is a little bit more direct in terms of what they're trying to ask me. How many lessons does it take to get good? I'm gonna define good for you. Okay, let's say good is that you can play one song, and I'm talking about a real song, like a top 40 song. Like a song that you know and you can sing to and is cool. I'm not talking about Mary Had a Little Lamb and Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So how long does it take to get good? To do like a basic song like, Mama, take this badge off of me. I can't use it anymore. It's getting dark, too dark to see. Feels like I'm knocking on heaven's door. Dylan tune. But something simple like that, 3 chords, just to play and to be able to play, not just play it like I did for you now, but to be play it with a song. If you practice every day, if you do weekly lessons, and if you're relatively normal, sorry, I don't want to. I don't want to. If it takes you a little longer, don't get discouraged. See, I'm really hesitant to put a timer on this thing, but I would say in about 5 weeks, 5 to 7 weeks, let's play it safe, you should be able to do what I just did. If you're an absolute beginner, you practice every single day for at least 30 minutes a day, and you're doing weekly lessons, and you try. Okay, that is a normal goal. Now, some people are way faster than that. Okay, some people can do that in their second lesson. Other people, I've seen them take months just to do that. But it doesn't matter how slow you go. It really doesn't matter how slow you go. Because the physical dexterity aspect of playing guitar, eventually when you overcome that, and it may take a year, it may take 5 years to just learn how to move your chords and stuff, after that it's all in the mind. So a lot of people don't realize that. It's just like if it took you a little bit longer than everyone else to learn how to talk. You know, some people learn how to talk when they're 2, other people learn how to talk when they're 4. Okay? And that could feel like a big deal to you if you're 4 and you're the only one that can't talk. Okay? But in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. By 10, everyone's yapping away. You know? So if it takes you longer to learn some chords or to get your fingers to work, that's really not the end of the world. It's only the beginning. You know, so don't judge yourself by that process. And like I said, anything you can do to make it easier, you should do. You should get an electric. It's going to be easier. These things are going to be easier for you, like playing, like the physical act of playing. Well, you may ask me, what else is there other than physically playing? Well, mentally comprehending music is harder than physically playing it, believe it or not. So I'm going to move on. If you have any questions, leave me a comment. I'll be happy to answer. Okay, here's a question. Should I do half-hour lessons, hour lessons, 90-minute lessons, or 2-hour lessons? Well, like I said, I usually tell people 1 hour once a week is good. As a teacher, that's usually all I usually offer people. Unless you're really advanced, then you can do more. But doing more just to sit in front of the teacher isn't always good. For instance, as an absolute beginner, to book a 2-hour session, if you're a really slow learner, it's different. If you're a really slow learner and you're able to acknowledge that and just work around that and say, hey, I need 2 hours or 90 minutes, that's different. But booking 2 hours at a time as a beginner, even advanced, I mean, you don't need that much time, in my opinion. That's my honest opinion. Should you do twice a week? If you're practicing to warrant that, you know. So it also depends on what your personality is. Like, do you need to check in more with your teacher to be okay? Or can you have some degree of self-propulsion if you do 1 lesson a week for the remainder 6 days, to be accountable to your own schedule, your own calendar? And if you can't, then come see me every 3 days. I'm fine with that. Or obviously, if you have a specific project you're working on, like a recording or a performance, and you're really under the gun, then I have people book every day for that. But in general, for beginners, remember, it could be overkill. Okay. Conversely, 30 minutes is okay. It doesn't really give me enough time, I feel, to you come in, you sit down, you tune up, you get situated. 5 minutes are already gone. Okay, we can hit it as fast as we can, but it's like a few minutes even to get situated, get your homework out, get your guitar tuned up, get ready to go. Say hello and some basic greetings, and log in, check your email history, see what you're working on, and then assess the situation, have you practice. That takes some time. I have had some students that have been super eager to just get something out of the lesson, so much so that they don't allow for the teacher to fully explore where they're at. They're ready for more, and it's well, can I see what you did? How can I see what you're working on? And they'll do it reluctantly, but I just want to address that because they're not bad or mean. It's just that they're so eager to get the next thing that they don't allow themselves to be seen fully by their teacher. So if you're gonna go get a lesson, let your teacher check out your playing for like a good 10 minutes. Let me see what you did, to really make an informed decision of how he or she can help you and what the next step is for you. That's a very crucial 10 minutes, even though you may not be getting anything new for 10 whole minutes. In the mind of the teacher, it's a very important 10 minutes, and you need to allow that process to work. Okay. How do I get good at rhythm? That's a really, I stuck that question in there. Not a lot of people ask that. Not a lot of people ask that, but I stuck it in for this. And the reason I did is because most beginner and intermediate students are bad at rhythm. I'm going to say it. They're just bad at rhythm. Rhythm is the hardest thing to learn, and it's the hardest thing, one of the hardest things to teach on the beginner level. On the beginner level, it's the hardest thing to teach, okay, because it's abstract. You can't wrap your mind, you can't wrap your hand around it. It's not physically tangible, but it's something that's there. Okay, music is a language, and learning to get good at rhythm is speaking the flow and the jargon of musical ebonics, and it's not in the thesaurus. Okay, and you've got to learn, and it's not easy. There's a technical aspect to rhythm in terms of increments of, quarter notes or eighth notes or 16th notes. There's a physical aspect of rhythm in terms of, let's say, flat picking, alternate strumming, down, up, down, up, all that stuff. And then there's a mathematical aspect to rhythm, which is the implementation of what you do inside of a 4-bar groove. So how do you get good at rhythm? Well, listen to your teacher, if I can say that as a plug to myself. Most students are bad at rhythm. I'll tell you, most students are bad at rhythm, but they don't know they're bad at rhythm. And the reason, and the reason you know this is, you say, well, play me a song. And they say, okay, then play it. And I said, now play the song, play your guitar to the song. And they can't play to the song. They can play the song on their own terms, but they can't sync and play to the song. And this is very dangerous. At first, this is inevitable, and this is how you start learning. But long term, if you just do that and you don't play two songs, but you only can play songs on your own, what it means is you don't know how to play nicely with all the other kids in the sandbox, right? You cannot play in a band. You can't play in an ensemble, in a duet, in a duo. You can't play the music. Okay? You're the sound of one hand clapping. You really can't do any more. And the reason you won't get as good as you could if you played to music is when you're playing to music, all those ideas that you're playing to in the music are coming back and stimulating you. So for instance, if I want to learn Russian and I hang out with like 5 or 6 Russians and they just speak Russian, and if they're not like teaching me, they're just living life and speaking Russian, I'm gonna learn their mannerisms and colloquialisms and how they jive and how they joke and how they flow. I'm gonna learn their sarcasm and their satire. I'm gonna learn all that just by being in the element, okay? But if I go to learn Russian and I'm just using my Rosetta Stone software, and I'm taking the test and I'm doing 100%, and I think I'm like this, I'm getting A+ on everything. I think I'm like amazing, right? So I booked my trip to go vacation. I go to Moscow and I start busting out my Russian at the airport, and I'm like, where's the bathroom? And like, I don't even understand what people are saying. They're just rattling off so fast in ebonics, or maybe they're like, you crazy American, I'm not even talking to you. But, or maybe they have dialects, that I'm not used to. So the quickest way to learn Russian is in Russia, okay? If you can't afford to go to Russia, then go find some Russian people, okay? The quickest way to get good at playing guitar is to play with other musicians. Speak their language. And the thing is it's not always going to be on your terms. As a beginner, if you're on guitar lessons, the whole hour is about you. It's all about you. It's all about, is your guitar tuned? Let's play your songs. How did you do? How are you feeling with these chords? Let's play these chords and see if I can play them with you. Go ahead and start it, and I'll play with you. And it should be that way, but it's all about you. But at some point, once you get good, you have to be able to just say, okay, it's not going to be about me. It's going to be about the song. So I'm going to get together with these other people, and we're going to play the song, okay? And that's like going to Russia, okay? That's like, I could go on and on with analogies, but if you're gonna play the guitar, you have to make that transition into playing music. You got to play music to music with music. So eventually you can play music with people and you can play for people. See, music is meant to be played with people and it's meant to be played for people. And ironically, music is the lyrical content is about people. The music is about people playing with people, playing for people. It's all about people. Music is about people. So the more you can get people involved in your playing, the better you're going to get, and the more you're going to understand the big picture. But you're going to really shun everyone out if you don't understand the fundamentals of rhythm. So I use a lot of different tactics and techniques to teach rhythm, including drum beats and machines, and I slow songs down with software. I actually just did a video on my channel. If you check like one or two videos back, I just did a video like last week on how I use music tech and with the way I teach, and in that video I cover some of those principles about what kind of technology I can use for rhythm. Which, by the way, nowadays I'm going to go into a little rabbit trail here, but nowadays it's so much easier to learn this stuff than even 10 years ago. Listen, I learned to play guitar in the 80s. You know, when you want to tune your guitar, I had to find a piano or like a tuning fork, you know, or a pitch pipe. You know, nowadays you just clip on this $11 tuner and you're done. It's crazy. You know, and so guitar playing has radically changed since I learned to play. Okay, and it's been great. And I teach now ultra modern current techniques, which make it so much easier to play rhythm and understand chord sequences. Back in the day, you just had to be so stubborn about wanting to get good at guitar until you're finally good, man. Which is how I came up, School of Hard Knocks. But nowadays, there's a lot of other tools. So one of those tools is there's software that actually tells you what the chord is while you're playing it, and there's other software that that can slow down a song so that you can slow the song down so that you can participate. So not only can you get a teacher that'll teach you how to play it, but then you can change the key and do stuff to change the chords to fit the chord vocabulary that you currently have, believe it or not. Some of you may not understand what I'm saying, but believe me when I tell you there's a lot of new ways to learn to play guitar that make it very, very applicable. Just like there's a lot of new ways to learn Russian. Listen, by the way, I'm not learning Russian, but if I wanted to learn Russian, you know what I would do on top of getting software and renting Russian movies and listening to Russian music and get like tutorial software and stuff? I would probably book a Skype call to a Russian/English teacher in Moscow or St. Petersburg. You know, it's probably cheaper in St. Petersburg because their standard of living is lower. You understand? I mean, it's so easy now to like interact with Russians. You know, imagine the same with music. I mean, I'm available on Skype. I got students that contact me from Argentina to Colombia, Brazil, China, and they want to learn from an American rock and roll pro, and they're booking me and hiring me on Skype. How cool is that? It's cool for me, but it's so cool for them. I mean, for me, it's not at the office, but they're interacting with somebody from the other side of the world where this music is created and performed or written. I think that's really cool. That's one use of technology. Here's another question for you. How often do I need to tune my guitar? Okay. A lot of people are surprised that I tune the guitar every time I go to play it. They're just shocked. But why do I do that? Because it needs tuning. Okay. Playing the guitar, just the simple act of playing, just the friction from hitting the strings and moving your fingers around, and just the strings even heating up from the friction and the movement, the vibration, the heating up causing the strings to expand, and all the movement and the vibration and the resonating, that is going to throw my guitar out of tune. Just that, believe it or not. Okay. On top of that, temperature. You know, I mean, I'm living in Miami, and we're in September, and it says here that it's 76 degrees in my office, and it's easily 95 degrees out there. So if you had your guitar in the car for like 30 minutes to an hour, your guitar went from the AC of your house like 72 to 76 degrees, let's say. Speaking of which, I'm going to turn it down a little bit. It's a little warm in here. Let's say it's like 74 degrees in your house, so your strings are set to 74 degrees, and then you put it in the car, and you put it in your trunk, and all of a sudden it's like 120 degrees in the trunk, and you do a 30-minute drive, and you get here and you pull it out, and it hits that 74 degree air again. What's going to happen? Well, your strings were in tune in your apartment or house when it was 74 degrees. They expanded, and the whole wood, everything expanded, by the way, when it hit 120 degrees in your trunk. And then it shrunk back real quick again when you chilled it at 74 degrees. You think it's going to shrink back and go exactly the same place it was before it expanded? Of course not, okay? And on top of that, how do you put your guitar up when you're done playing with it? You know, do you put it like this? Let me back up a little bit. Do you put it like this? And do you lean it against the wall like this? Well, then these tuners are going to get moved in just ever so incrementally, and that's enough to knock you out of tune. Okay? Or do you put it on a stand, or maybe you can slide it face down under your bed on top of a towel. A lot of people don't want to put a guitar face down. They feel like it's sacrilegious. But if you don't have a guitar stand or a guitar case, to put it on top of a towel face down under your bed is probably the safest way to keep it protected, secure, out of the way, and in tune. Okay, putting it face up, you're still resting the weight on the tuner. So if you put it face down, there's no weight on the tuner. Okay. And then the other question is, do you have pets or kids that's going to knock your guitar around, or kids that are going to come wind your winder? Obviously, you're going to need to tune if that's the case. So you should learn. There's a lot of cool ways of tuning. Actually, I just recently did a video on a snark review. And in the video, I teach you how to tune. So if you want to learn how to tune, you can check that video. Feel free to subscribe. I do a lot of cool videos for up-and-comers. So there's a lot of free information here, folks. Okay. How many times a week should I practice? Here's our next question. How many times a week should I practice? Well, like I said earlier, ideally, if you can do twice a week as a beginner, I think that's realistic. But you should try to practice every day. As you improve, it really depends. You know, if you're in lessons and you're doing twice a week, I think that's the minimum. Okay, the minimum for what? The minimum to validate the experience in paying for the lessons. You know, you got to do something. And then on top of that, it's really about how good you want to get. Obviously, the more you practice, the better you get. At first, though, for your first 2 or 3 weeks, you should practice. Either you don't want to practice so much that the skin is ripping off your blisters. Okay, so be careful with that. Okay, don't practice so much as an absolute beginner that your skin rips off your blisters. But aside from that, you should be able to push through. Once you get some calluses going, you should just practice. You could practice 10 minutes at a time, 3 times a day. You could practice for 20 minutes twice a day. You could practice 30 minutes to an hour once a day. Whatever works for you, whatever you can do. Like I said earlier, it's not the end of the world if you don't practice every day, but just try to do what you can. Okay. And I have another question here. It's how long should I practice every day? I kind of just answered that just now. Okay. Here's something. Here's a cool one. I just got asked this the other day. I had a guy come in, really nice guy, and he's a martial arts instructor. Okay, and he wants to take guitar. And so he's like, I've got no experience. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm here to learn. I said, great, let's just learn. And he said, oh, by the way, here's the song. And he gives me the song. It's like, I want to play this song for my wife in 3 weeks. And I said, oh, okay. Huh. And I said, okay. And I was like, how do I, address this? Because it was a pretty basic song, but it's still complex in terms of rhythms and cadence and structure. And the verse is different from the chorus, which is different from the pre-chorus, which is different from the intro, which is different from the guitar solo. I mean, you get the idea. There's like changes coming at you at light speed and as an absolute beginner. And I'm like, okay. So I said to him, so you teach martial arts? He's like, yeah. And I said, okay, imagine I go to your school and I say, hey, I want to take martial arts lessons and I'm an absolute beginner. Okay, great, here's where you sign up, no problem. And then I were to say to you right after that, hey, I just booked a fight with like the local, state champion in 3 weeks, so you got to make me win, Of course, I'll be telling everyone that, I'm taking martial arts lessons from your school, so that's how I'll be represented and then it's kind of like not realistic. So don't set yourself up for failure right away. You got to just go into this thing with an open mind and just be willing to work. You get exactly what you put into it. That's 100% true. You're going to get out of this experience exactly what you put into it. But don't have unrealistic expectations like you're going to get good at guitar without practicing, or that you don't even have a guitar and you expect to be able to practice or be good without even owning one, or in 3 weeks you're going to be able to play your favorite song to your wife. Now, you may be able to play a cool song that's really nice that I can assign you that is or was a top 40 hit in 3 weeks. You may be able to do that, okay? But don't bet on the song that you chose for yourself to be the easiest song with the easiest chord changes for yourself. Just try to have an open mind. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying, try to have an open mind. Okay, so here's something for more advanced students, intermediate students, advanced students, and they say, here's a common question I get. They're on Google every night. They're Googling how to get better at guitar, how to get good at guitar, and Google said, or they found a website where they found a guy that said, hey, you really need to do this, or if you're going to be good, you're going to do that, and then they'll say in their lesson, shouldn't I be doing this? Shouldn't I be doing that? I was on Google and the thing talked about there's more complex concepts here like modal playing, cage system, sweep picking, and I'm like, yeah, but you just learned how to play A minor, okay? You want modal playing? And then some people are really smart and they're overachievers, okay? And they can always find a shortcut in a situation or a scenario, which is good, okay? But there's no shortcuts when it comes to really learning true technique. There are definitely things you can do to accelerate the process to go to the shortest possible distance between 2 points. But assuming you're doing that with a good instructor, there's no real way of circumventing or shortcutting basics before getting into more advanced topics or techniques, okay? So just because you're really smart and you're still learning how to play some basic chords, or maybe you're already learning how to improvise and some easy pentatonic stuff, doesn't mean that you're right away ready for modal playing or sweep picking, okay? So don't assume, and just because you saw it on Google. The guy on Google or the guy on YouTube that told you that, he doesn't know you. Like I know you. If I'm your teacher, I actually know you, and I know how fast you're developing, how you process information, how concepts need to be explained to you in a way that you are going to understand them. And when I give you a new concept, how many days or weeks it takes for you to come back to me with an understanding and the ability to reproduce that concept. Like I know you if you're my student. But the guys on Google, they don't know you, okay? So you Google something and you take it back to your teacher and you say, teach me this, or even, if you don't teach me this, you're not gonna, satisfy my expectations. It's not that I can't physically possibly explain it to you or even do it. It's just that you may not be able to retain it within the 60 minutes that we have together or the 2 months that you've been taking lessons. So you want to be careful about that. I'm not trying to discourage you from Googling stuff, because you should Google stuff and you should learn in all ways that you can. Matter of fact, I did a video, I referred to it earlier, about ways of learning guitar on the internet. There's so much to learn out there, but just be careful about then putting that stipulation on your local instructor, because you may not be ready for it all. Now, that being said, if you feel like your instructor is not savvy to the techniques that you want to learn, and you're being held back because of the instructor's inability to perform those techniques or even comprehend the stuff that you're looking at, then you should definitely ask those difficult questions and maybe even seek out a new instructor, okay? That's absolutely for sure. But if you can find a way of balancing the two sides of this thing, okay? Find a good instructor, and the way you know they're going to be good is they have good reviews. But the best thing once you get in face-to-face is if you like the way they play. If they play in a way that you really like and it moves you and speaks to you, then stick with that person, okay? If you don't like the way they play and they have a bunch of degrees on the wall and they make a powerful case of why they're the best instructor verbally, but they can't actually play in a way that you like, then I don't suggest you learn from that person. And that's true for anything in life, I think, but that's also true for guitar. So try to balance the two. This is a journey, you know. I've been learning for 31 years. I've been teaching full time for like 16 years. And I didn't learn it all from just one teacher. I didn't learn it all from one course or one book or one way of practicing or one band or one genre. Like, I just kept going, and eventually I learned a lot of different techniques and a lot of different concepts and playing styles. And I'm a student of the guitar as well as a teacher. I love it. So I would encourage you to adopt a similar mentality. You know, be a student of the guitar and commit to playing for life. I'm not saying commit to your specific teacher. I'm not saying commit to your style of music. You could switch genres. I'm not saying commit to electric or acoustic or nylon or bass. I'm not, you know, but if you're committed to learning the guitar, no matter what shape or form, you will. You'll succeed, you know, and over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you'll have something to show for it, which is the goal, obviously. You're watching this video because you want to learn how to get good. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I'm giving out lots of free insight, wisdom, and covers and cool inspirational videos applying and stuff. Also, if you like this video, if you hit like or comment, really helps me out. And also it helps the community, because the people watching this video, they're all part of a community that want to learn. So if you have something to contribute or say in response to what I'm saying, feel free to comment. That could help somebody else, just like this is helping you. Okay, and I will see you on the next video. I appreciate you for watching. Okay, thanks so much.